Air Force Museum behind-the-scenes restoration tour.
My name is Mrs. Metcalf, and I'm going to be your guide as we go through the three hangars that's known as the restoration area. The first aircraft we're going to look at is the XF75. It's bodied by Fisher, but no, it is not a Cadillac. It was originally intended to fill the need for a long-range interceptor in the Pacific. It has two Allison V1710 engines, married to a common crankshaft, two coaxial contra-rotating propellers, have 24 cylinders connected by dual drive shafts running underneath the cockpit to the engine located midship. Now, as if this weren't bad enough, they've mounted the guns on the fuselage, so the guns are shooting through these two counter-rotating propellers, and if you're one tooth off in your car, you're stranded on Highway 70. If you're one tooth off on this aircraft, you're probably on your way down. This is an RF-86F, and it spent some time under the water in the Mississippi River in Gumbo, Missouri. Behind me are two machines. When they closed down the labs over on the other side, there was a lot of equipment that was not necessary anymore, and they threw these away. So not only are we pack rats, but we're also good scavengers. And they pulled these off the trash pile. This is a hole punch. Now, if you've ever had to make more than one hole in a line of holes, that first of all you want a standard size, and second of all you want limited time to do it, it's time consuming and it's tedious work. This we can do, and we can guarantee the accuracy of the size of the hole. Another thing that I like to point out with our volunteers, we are very blessed. We have volunteers who can make something out of whole cloth. We have volunteers who you can show them a picture of something and they will create it. We have machinists. Unfortunately, they're getting up in years, and we don't really have an apprentice program that will bring young people in to the museum to learn how to do this or to take up the challenge. Young people go to the computer. They can draw and they can create on the computer. So we are right now looking at down the road sometime of being devoid of those talented people who can help us in this job. The Betty Jo is the twin Mustang, the F-82 twin Mustang that sits on the floor in the Korea area. And to this day, she holds the record from Hawaii to New York. 1947, she did it non-stop. This is a propeller-driven aircraft. Now, what made her able to do this were 4 extra fuel tanks. We're waiting right now for the pylons that will attach her to the Betty Jo. And we say right now, oh, big deal. But in 1947, that was a big deal. And this story is still appropriate. And with all the choices, I'm always struck when you go into the Vietnam gallery with all the choices that we had, jets of every kind, every model. You see very close in there to the very beginning, the A-1E Sandy, propeller-driven. We still use the propeller-driven aircraft, and I think it's interesting that these things never get put to side and we say we can't use them anymore, because we always manage to find a use for them. This is an interesting experiment, and any kind of experimental aircraft, we don't consider failure bad. Failure is an educational tool. It isn't always so bad to fail. And if you fail once, you can put that aside and say, I don't need this for this particular project, and you can move on to something else. But what you're looking at is the XH26 Jet Jeep helicopter. Now say that fast 4 times. But in the middle of 1951, the American Helicopter Company was awarded the contract to build these aircraft, and only 2 were made. This aircraft belongs to another museum, and we are borrowing it only long enough to get the missing parts to this particular aircraft, our aircraft, manufactured. It was 300 pounds empty. It met all applicable handbook and military specification requirements, did not require special tools or require mechanic skill more specialized than the average Army mechanic, could provide rugged and serviceable and maintenance-free vehicle, possessed simple flight controls, maneuverability, and flying qualities. She was a single-seater, collapsible helicopter and was to provide the frontline aerial reconnaissance and observation for the Army during the early phases of airborne operations or armored combat. Could be assembled by 2 men in less than 20 minutes. No hydraulics, no gearbox. She was driven by a belt. She had pulse jet engines, 2 on each tip of the rotor, no torque. She had tricycle and skid landing gear. She could fold into a small aerial delivery container, could be transported in a Jeep trailer. Her windshields could come off, doors came off, rotor blades could be removed with 4 bolts per blade. She folded up. Her load was a pilot, parachute, portable radio, and 50 gallons of fuel. She was called tree material.
Where's Vince Vaughn?
Well, I'm not even sure he would even look twice at this. At any rate, this will go over into the R&D hangar, and you can see how rather rough it is right now on the inside. This is good compared to some of the stuff we get in boxes with the tree that the airplane's been wrapped around as well. So we don't consider this a monumental task. It's pretty standard, and when we're finished with putting this aircraft together, then we'll return this one to the museum where it belongs.
A restored YF-22 on exhibit in the Dayton Air Force Museum.
My pleasure to have such wonderful people and visitors come again.